Hello everyone and welcome to the forest. This is Matt from Indefensive Plants and we're out here enjoying another beautiful spring day. The nights have been getting a lot warmer and that means a lot of stuff is starting to wake up, so we're seeing a lot of new plants in the forest. So come on, let's go find us some flowers. I adore this plant. This is the blue-eyed Mary, Collinsia verna. It's an annual, meaning it lives its entire life in one season, but it's not any kind of annual. It's what we call a winter annual. So this plant pops up pretty quickly in the spring, and after it's pollinated, it sets seed, and those seeds wait and germinate in the fall. So they exist under the snow cover, if you even get snow cover, as a tiny little rosette of leaves. That way it's primed and ready to go as soon as the nice weather kind of starts coming in. But other than the beauty of the flowers, their structure and pollination mechanism is absolutely fascinating. In order to make sure it doesn't self-pollinate, the anthers and the stigma are actually physically separated by such a great distance that they're not going to accidentally touch each other. And one of the cool things about it is that it kind of guarantees that it's only going to give pollen to a bee that's heavy enough to pollinate the flowers. And it does so with this interesting morphology. When a bee that's heavy enough lands on the petal, starts drinking the nectar out of the base, its weight actually pushes down onto the two petals, separating them, revealing the reproductive organs that actually dust the base or the bottom of the bee's abdomen. And in that way, it guarantees that it's not getting pollen from other plant species. It's a really cool little plant and it's really hard to predict. And depending on the conditions that it's growing in, it can be highly variable in shape and size. So it's a neat one to keep your eyes out for if you're lucky enough to find it. I like any plant that makes you work to appreciate it. And there's no better example of that than this plant right here. This is wild ginger, Asarum canadense. So these are plants that arose long before the big distinction between monocot and dicot really became more apparent. And the reason I say it takes a little bit more to appreciate this plant is because it doesn't produce easy to appreciate flowers. You kind of got to get down underneath the forest litter to really see what's going on. You can go right here at this plant, see what I'm talking about. So when mature, each plant produces this beautiful little three-parted flower that usually sits at or below the leaf litter. They bloom in early spring, and there's probably a good reason for that. Although there's not a lot of data on this, the thought is that a lot of insects that are out and about this time of year are often looking for nice warm places to hide, to shelter themselves from early spring rains and winds. And what better place than a beautiful little flower tucked away underneath the forest floor? It's a really neat little plant, and again, it takes a little bit more effort to appreciate its beauty. Definitely a plant worthy of a native garden setting, especially in more shaded conditions. Wherever rich soils are in the eastern United States, there's a good chance you might find yourself some wild ginger, so keep your eyes out for this one. This is Thalictrum dioicum. It's a really cool member of the buttercup family, but unlike many of its cousins, it really doesn't have what we would call traditionally attractive flowers. This is another species that kind of makes you work to appreciate it. It gets its specific epithet, dioicum, because plants are in fact dioecious, meaning that individuals are either male or female. In the spring, the male plants are generally higher than the female plants, and that all has to do with pollination. As you can see here up close, the anthers of this plant are like little chandeliers. They dangle very loosely underneath the bracts, and the slightest breeze will just send them flying. This is what we call a wind-pollinated plant. Now the males are generally higher because they have to actually capture the breeze. And once the females are pollinated and the seeds start to mature, those will generally get higher eventually for things like seed dispersal. But in the meantime, it's a really beautiful plant. You just have to get a little more up close and personal with it to really appreciate it. It's a great plant for a shaded garden, especially for those of you that like to grow native plants. And yeah, it's a really pleasant one to find this time of year. Check it out, it's a bellwort. It gets that name because it dangles its flowers down towards the ground, much like a bell, unlike other plants that shoot them straight up to the sky in full display. Regardless, this plant seems to be succeeding pretty well. I see high rates of pollination most places I go. Now, this used to be placed in the lily family, with its 6-part flowers, making it seem quite basal in the lily lineage. However, now some people think it's more closely related to the crocuses. Until that taxonomic stuff gets sorted out, I'm just going to appreciate this plant for the beauty that it is. Now, this is something interesting. Who doesn't love a nice violet? And certainly this is a nice violet. I originally thought it was the common blue violet, but looking at it closer, it doesn't look exactly like what it should. In fact, I think this is what we call the northern blue violet, and it may seem like a small distinction, but an up-close personal look at this plant will reveal a lot of subtle differences. For instance, the flowering stalk on this individual is hairy, not smooth, and the underside of the leaves also kind of tomentose at the same time. Over here, we have something more akin to what I think of as the common blue violet. It's got a smooth stem, smooth leaves, and is a little bit smaller in stature. And it's these minor differences that make the world of field botany so much fun. I look forward to finding more of the relatives in the coming weeks. Well, that ends another successful day of botanizing in the forests of Central Illinois. I hope you're enjoying these videos as much as I am making them. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tell your friends. Until next time, thanks for watching.